For Trojaninsider.com, I'm Pete Ghersen, joined here by Aidan Berg, and we'd like to say good morning to you, as it's almost 1 a.m. here at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. USC has just defeated Washington State with a final score of 39-36. It's now the 18th straight win here at the Coliseum for the Trojans, the 13th straight win over a Pac-12 opponent at the Coliseum. So Aidan, a successful night for the Trojans tonight. After a couple losses on the road, they regroup at home. Friendly confines of the Coliseum comes in clutch, and a really good all-around effort compared to last week where we were talking about the special teams struggling, the defense struggling. Tonight, special teams, you could say, won the game with that block field goal. JT Daniels was very poised, very solid, 0 turnovers for the offense, and the defense stepped up when they needed to in that second half.
Yeah, for sure. I think, the number one takeaway that I had from this game was JT Daniels played his best game as a Trojan, 240 yards or so, 3 touchdowns. Seemed to have a lot more chemistry with his wide receivers. That was something that he and Coach Helton talked a lot about in the post-game presser. Made some incredible throws, touch throws over the top, dropping it right in the bucket to Amon St. Brown, 30-yard touchdown. It was just beautiful stuff from JT out there.
Yeah, the first half, USC got off to a hot start just like they did last week. And they started to stall, and the defense started to let up huge plays after huge play. Washington State at one point had 4 straight possessions that ended in a touchdown. And it looked like the USC defense was going to let them down once again. But they stepped up in that second half, didn't get any turnovers, but Porter Gustin came back in the second half, made his presence felt, and USC kind of took it from there on offense, used the momentum. And JT Daniels, we can't speak enough. The guy does not look like a freshman out there. No, he doesn't have the most gaudy stats ever, but just the way he stands in the pocket. I think the offensive line played a lot better tonight. They're opening up holes after -5 rushing yards last week. We had Vavae Malapei pick up 80 yards, Stephen Carr get 77 yards. Malapei actually had 2 touchdowns on the ground. That's now 5 on the year for Vavae. Cedric Ware didn't get really involved at all. He only had 1 carry for 1 yard, 3 carries for 1 yard. Didn't get involved at all. Clay Helton said he might have been a little banged up in practice this week, so that's my only explanation for him not getting involved, but at least USC had the 1-2 punch in the running game. Michael Pittman made some beautiful plays. Amon St. Brown, of course, feels like we talk about him every week. He was quiet in the first half, had 0 catches, and came right back. Beautiful throw by JT right in his breadbasket. Amon makes a 30-yard touchdown catch. USC goes ahead. Well, let's talk about special teams. The punting was much better than last week.
So much better.
They averaged
crazy.
around 25, 26 yards a punt last week. Today it was 39. It was all Reed Budovich. The kicking game was pretty solid. Field goal was good for Michael Brown and all his PATs. And then, of course, the block field goal. Jay Tufele comes up clutch. USC up by 3 with 1:50 left. Jay Tufele comes in, gets the block on a 38-yarder, and that ended up being the game-winning play.
Yeah, Coach Helton talked in the post-game presser about how they prepared the team for that eventuality, being able to block a field goal in the biggest moment like this. They prepared, by the hash mark. They knew that was the gap on, towards the inside, I guess. They knew that Jay was going to be that guy who could potentially make that play. Cam, kind of like slotted him over, he said, at some point, the captain of the defense there. And it was, as Clay Helton said, they made the one big play that Washington State didn't, and that was the difference.
Exactly. Cam Smith, can't talk enough about him. The guy's the Mike linebacker out there. He's the most vocal guy, and he led the team in tackles for the 4th straight week. The guy is just a stud on defense. Going to miss him next year, but glad to have him and some of these other veterans like Marvell Tell also leading the way. So you have the veterans on the defense. You also have the youngsters like Talanoa Hufanga, who came in clutch tonight. Made that unbelievable play. You asked Coach Helton about it in the press conference. An unbelievable play. Came out of nowhere, it seemed like. Batted the ball down with his left hand. He had, I think, 9 tackles tonight, somewhere in that range. Either way, the stat was he tripled his career tackles tonight in 1 game alone.
Yeah.
So he got his first start, and he came up huge for Clay Helton. I don't want to see a lot of him going forward.
Very impressive stuff from him. I think the number one, one big success that this coaching staff has had so far is preparing those safeties to fill in for those guys. You saw Isaiah came in for Bubba Bolden. He played really well in the first few games before he got hurt. And the same happened with Talanoa. Can't say enough about what those guys have done to step in and really fill in the gap at that safety position.
So USC, we've said this plenty of times, they're still in the hunt for the Pac-12 title. There's no reason why they can't win the South. Big game obviously next week at Arizona, and then the Pac-12 schedule just piles up after that, Pac-12 team after Pac-12 team. It was interesting tonight, not the biggest crowd. Maybe the 1 and 2 start had something to do with that, but only, I think it was 53,000 here tonight. Either way, it was the lowest crowd here in 18 years. Lowest crowd since a game against Arizona in 1999. So not exactly sure why the Trojan faithful aren't coming out. Personally, it looked like it was about the same attendance-wise that we've had for other lesser opponents, like the Oregon State game last year was a day game, wasn't very packed. To me, it seemed like it was just as many people as that. But when the crowd needed to get loud enough on third down, they did. And Washington State is a terrific third down and fourth down team. They actually went 3 of 3 tonight on fourth down. Mike Leach is not a shy guy when it comes to going for it on fourth down. But they were only 7 of 16 on third down. So USC came through in the clutch in that second half. I still think that the defense needs to stop allowing those huge plays, especially across the middle. It seemed like countless times guys were open in the middle of the field and caught easy balls, especially for those third and longs. I'd like to see the defense tighten up, but all in all, a good performance, and it's encouraging to go into next week knowing that USC can play this way and beat a pretty solid team in Washington State.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that stuck out the most to me while watching this game with USC's resiliency. This is, in many facets, a very young team. A lot of the offensive playmakers are pretty young. Some of the guys on defense are having to fill in, before they were expected to. But then they're coming off of 2 embarrassing losses and staring down another one in the Coliseum where they haven't lost in 18 games, as you said. And they were staring all that down, and they came up big. And that's really impressive for a team that has so many young guys on it.
Yeah, so big things in the work for the Trojans. We know you guys have been a little down the last couple weeks, and for good reason, but they showed the potential tonight. I think they're starting to gel as a team. Michael Pittman hasn't really had a connection all year with JT Daniels, but tonight it seemed like they're on the same page. Tyler Vaughns is kind of becoming one of JT's favorite targets as well. We all know Amon-Ra St. Brown and JT are, like glue. These guys have been throwing the football around the backyard for years, so we don't have to worry about him. And now the running game's finally getting into play. Stephen Carr's getting touches. Levi's looking really strong, especially in short yardage situations. So I think there's a lot of encouraging signs. We'll have Porter Gustin for a full game next week. He definitely makes his presence felt. Picked up the lone sack on the night, even though it was only a 1-yard loss. It came on a third down. It was a huge play. So we'll be in Arizona next week. Big game against Cleo Tate and the Wildcats in Tucson. But for Trojaninsider.com, I'm Peter Ghersen.
I'm Aidan Berg.
And we'll see you guys next Saturday night.